Hello everybody, my name is Dutchy, welcome to RPG Labs, and let's get right into this video. Alright, so in this video I'm going to be talking about the free Wayfinders you will be unlocking later on in the game, which is Kyros, Venomess, and Senja. Now I'll quickly be going over their skills, their abilities, and also their primary weapon. Now I will also talk a little bit about their lore, but I'll probably be saving the lore when the game properly comes out so I can dive into it properly and deeply. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it, starting with Venomess. Now Venomess is a deadly assassin from the Maze. The Maze are a group of people who opposed the Empire and fought many wars against them. Her poison has changed the course of history, but the gloom has swallowed her, the Maze, and the Empire itself. And now her secret war is over. Venomess is a survivor. Even though she was swallowed by the gloom, she came out as a Wayfinder. And now the Seekers are the only game in town. Now a quick thing about her combat style is that she is actually probably one of the few Wayfinders that can excel at both melee combat and range combat. Her kit at the moment is all about healing your allies and poisoning your enemies. When you use Venomous's poison, you can actually also heal with it by using some of her abilities. Every single time you attack a target and get a stack of 5 poison on them, it will release a small poison cloud around that target. And then you can absorb that with some of your abilities to heal your allies. Since we're talking about her abilities anyway, let's get into it properly. Her first ability is Transfusion. This will shoot a bunch of poison needles straight at the target in front of you. Now this will deal poison damage to the target, and it will also send out a small healing orb that will heal the nearest person to the target. Now this will be a really good ability to use mid-combat if you're fighting the character yourself with melee weapons, or if you're using a ranged weapon, it's really good to keep your tank alive, for example Senja in this little clip right here. Now Venomous also has a really good movement ability, which is called Venomous Thrust. Now this will let you dash in that direction, sorta like dodging, but while you're dodging this time, you will also leave a poison cloud behind, dealing damage to anyone who is inside of it. And this poison damage will also remain even if they're outside of it for a duration. These poison clouds also appear when you're dealing damage to your enemies with your primary weapon. Now once you get your enemies up to a 5 stack of poison, it will drop a poison cloud underneath them. And the reason I'm actually bringing this up is for the next ability, which is called Vampiric Blast. Now Vampiric Blast throws a small bomb out that deals damage after it explodes. But that's not the main thing you really want to be using this one for. You can also absorb up to 5 nearby poison clouds and heal every ally in the vicinity of that explosion. Now the healing that you do is based on the amount of poison clouds that you actually absorb, so one thing that I would recommend is either dealing damage to the character for a while until there's some poison on the ground for you, or you can use your Venomous Thrust to quickly go straight through them, make a 180 turn, throw the bomb at them, and heal the ally that's attacking the target, or yourself if you need to. Now let's talk about Deep Breath, which is Venomous's ultimate ability. Now what this does, it will send out a small explosive in front of you, dealing damage, but it will also apply Empowered Venom. Now Empowered Venom is a little bit different to the normal Venom that you usually be applying, because with the normal Venom you can only stack up to 5 and then that's it. However, if you stack up to a 5 on a character in front of you, and then you also use your ultimate ability, you will stack another 5 on top of that, so there will be a 10 stack of damage instead of a 5 stack, which means you're basically doubling your poison effect. Now let's talk about Venomous's signature weapon, Nightshade. Now Nightshade can do burst fire, and it can also go fully automatic if you empower the clip during its reload. Now while it's empowered as well, every single bullet that comes out of your gun will deal a small stack of poison damage. Now this poison stack can go up to 20 times, which means that this is actually a separate one from your Venomous ability. Which basically means that you can actually hit up to a solid 30 stack of poison damage on a single target. Now let's quickly talk about her and her playstyle a little bit. I personally think that Venomous is going to be a great pick for anyone who wants to be a little bit of a skilled style healer, because healing with her will be a little bit more tricky than with Windgrave, for example. Windgrave will be easily able to heal while he's in the front line, and he'll just do a couple of abilities to get the healing done. While with her, you'll need to make sure you set up the poison clouds properly, and you'll be able to heal your targets a lot more than Windgrave. However, you will need to make sure that you get those poison clouds out, otherwise you won't be able to heal as much as you want to. I'm also gonna quickly say probably the best weapons for her is her signature weapon, in my opinion, because it will allow you to deal some extra poison damage with it as well. But I also think some daggers will be actually really good with her if you want to go for more of a melee style build. Because with the daggers you'll be able to use them so fast, and you'll be able to apply so many stacks of poison on them that you can heal yourself a lot faster as well. If you are going to go for a bit of a melee build with her and her daggers, probably one of the best things you can do after you've taken a little bit of damage is to use your Venom Thrusters to get right behind the target itself and then immediately chuck one of those Vampiric Blasts down. This will heal you and at the same time deal damage to the enemy. Alright, well that is enough about Venomous. Let's move over to Kyros. Now Kyros is a powerful war mage. The arcane power flows through him, and he can unleash these forces to devastate his enemies. He is also the last survivor of a forgotten civilization, a wizard who transformed his flesh into pure mystical energy. Although his people may be long lost, he is sworn to keep the gloom from destroying the world that remains. Now to talk about his combat style a little bit. His combat style is mostly about AoE. He is quite squishy because he is a bit of a war mage, but he can deal a lot of damage. I would say probably prefer melee weapons with him, however he is a little bit of a close/medium range, so a rifle can work with him. However, I do still think that melee combat will be best with him. Now let's talk about the abilities. Savage Rake will rake the ground in front of you with violent energy, dealing damage to all enemies in front of Kyros. Now the cool thing about this ability as well is that if you have an Arcane Fragment, which is your passive every time you deal a combo finisher on someone, you will be able to use this ability for no cost, meaning you can actually spam this ability at some points. Now Siphon Radiant releases a wave of energy around Kyros that damages enemies and absorbs arcane power, reducing cooldowns and granting an arcane fragment as well. Arcane Focus marks enemies in an area, and once the enemies are marked, the power will build up and then detonate at max, or when it expires. Now we come up to Kyros' final ability and his ultimate ability, the Hand of Reckoning. Now this deals massive damage to enemies in a large radius around Kyros. Now Kyros' signature weapon is called Epitaph. I hope I said that right, by the way. This is a scythe that can do a 360 spin, stealing ability powers from enemies. Now it doesn't actually say if there's a limit to this, so the more enemies you hit in this 360 spin, the more ability power you get, so the stronger you become. Just in case you're not sure what ability power is basically a stat that the higher it is, the more damage you deal with, well, your abilities. Alright, now let's talk about the last and tankiest Wayfinder in the game so far, Senja, the Gladiator. Now, before the Gloom swallowed this prideful warrior, Senja was the greatest gladiator in the Imperial arena. Now she is also the last of the Iron Sisters, a league of warriors from distant lands. Now Senja is all about showboating, and her abilities really show that as well. I kinda like this in one way because I feel like it adds to her character story that she just always has to show off 24/7 in order for her to feel good. Because I feel like something terrible must have happened with the Iron Sisters, so she's kind of like in this state where she just needs to be showboating, otherwise the memories come back and she will be haunted by them. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about her abilities. Now her first ability is called Gladiator Pummel. She punches forward, and then when she holds the showboat a little bit, on release Senja punches again and buffs her next weapon attack. If she fully showboats, by the way, as well, her follow-up punch will also deal increased damage. Now don't worry about taking punches too much because Senja is actually a tank, and if you got a healer on your team, that's even better. But Senja, when she's showboating, she also takes reduced damage, and she can also not be staggered. So if there's anyone who's about to do a stagger move on you, you will be able to quickly do some showboating and you will, well, basically ignore any stun abilities. Oh, and the more you showboat, the more damage you can basically do with your normal attacks, and your ability power will also be increased. Now, Senja's second ability is called Gain Favor. Now, what this will do, it will unleash a giant roar for Senja, and the longer she holds it, the more of the crowd's favor she'll get. This will also buff nearby allies, and it will also taunt all nearby enemies to go towards you instead of your allies. Now, Lightning Grasp is her third ability. Basically what this does, you will use a chain of lightning to pull enemies towards you, and then you can start dealing damage to them. Now this ability is going to be really handy for when you see your healers being attacked or a squishy character being attacked in general. Now Grand Final is her final and at the same time ultimate ability. Now what happens is Senja takes the form of a lightning spear and charges straight towards the enemy, dealing massive damage to them and fully filling the crowd's favor. Now Senja's weapon is called the Colossus. Now with this weapon you can perform a quick melee strike that will buff your next ability. Now at the same time, if you use this again, it will greatly increase the damage that you do with your ability up to 2 times. Now at the moment I do think Senja is probably going to be a big must pick for when you're going to go do endgame bosses and such, because she is 100% one of the most tankiest heroes there is, and she is also one of the only ones who really has a taunt ability, apart from Silo who has a taunt ability but that is more focused towards his clone. You do also have Windgrave, who is a pretty decent tank and healer at the same time, but definitely Senja is going to be the big tank for the game so far. And one more thing, I do recommend not using a ranged weapon with her because, well, she is built to be a tank, so if you're using ranged abilities on her, that would probably not work out too well. But hey, the game isn't out yet, maybe there's gonna be some really crazy build with Senja at one point with a ranged weapon, so we will see and find out. Anyway, hopefully you guys liked the video, and if you did, why not subscribe and like and do all that kind of stuff. And also, if you guys want, come check me out on Kick. It's a new streaming platform that I've been streaming on a little bit, and I'm gonna be streaming a lot of Wayfinder as soon as it comes out. Alright, I'll catch you guys all later. Bye!